You are listening to a Monster Kid podcast.
Why don't we rent a video tonight?
Yeah, can we please?
On a weeknight?
Yeah, come on, Mom. It's okay.
Sure. Come on. Let's throw caution to the wind.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Vericon Video, a sometimes weekly show where we relive forgotten and unforgettable movies that once lined the shelves of video stores everywhere. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joseph.
And today we're taking a trip to Woodsboro to see what the hell's going on with this horror movie-loving Ghostfaced killer who is slicing and dicing his way through Scream from 1996. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Woodsboro.
Welcome to the Cafe 80s, where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Okay, good evening, America, and welcome aboard Apollo 13.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you're enjoying it. I think you will.
A year after her mother's brutal murder, a high school girl and her friends are stalked by a serial killer who's obsessed with horror movies. So, Joe, talk to me about this movie.
I'll talk to you about this movie. All right. So, just to start off with the fact that this movie is the hizzle of the rizzle faux schnizzle. It's the yin to my yang, baby. As we'll talk about it in a little bit, this movie was directed by Wes Craven, God rest his soul, is responsible for The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, Swamp Thing, A Vampire in Brooklyn. Like, oh my God, this is just the guy. I don't even know where to begin with him. It's just phenomenal what he's done, and he's left on such a legacy. I also love this movie because it was released both on the month and the year I was born, December of 1996. So I just have this little personal love. Let's see. Kevin Williamson, who screenplayed this badass horror flick, has something in common with Brandon and I that I think Brandon's going to be mentioning very shortly here in this episode. I saw this movie numerous times in high school, but I think the most memorable time I remember watching this movie was with a group of my friends at the Gateway Residence Hall during my freshman year at ECU. Halfway through the movie, during that whole entire climactic part in the house where we see a lot of people die, because I was like, I'm going to time this perfectly. I'm going to walk in this room, scare the shit out of everybody. Lo and behold, my plot was a success. I legit bought this Scream costume for Halloween that year, and it was perfectly done with the cloak. Like, you couldn't see anything skin-wise. Everything was black except for the mask, of course, and I even had this knife that had, like, dripping blood off of it. It was plastic. But I go into the room, and everybody sees me as, like, a Scream on TV is killing somebody. One person pissed their pants. Everybody else screamed their shits off. And it was the best thing ever, Brennan. But yeah.
So when you left to go change, did you say, I'll be right back?
I was like, I'll be right back. Gotta go take a piss, but I'll be right back.
Classy. I didn't see this when it first came out in theaters. I honestly don't really remember the first time I saw it on video. I do remember seeing it in the new releases section of the video store, but when I did see it, it had a huge impact on me. I saw the second one in theaters. I remember, I'm not sure if I saw the third one in theaters, but I probably watched the third one the most, and I don't know why. I think it was because it was very Hollywood-centric, and that's where my head was at the time. But this one, the first one, as we'll later talk about, really got the horror genre's pulse back in a whole new way. Like, everybody was talking about it. Scary movies were in vogue again, and 90s horror was all about capitalizing on Scream's formula. And I had the mask, I had the buck hunting knife, the voice changer, which really wasn't used in the movie, of course, except as a prop. We have Roger L. Jackson's iconic voice for that. But nevertheless, it was a cool thing to bring to school. Never really dressed up, though, but I had them just as part of a growing collection I had at the time.
Nice.
Joseph, let me ask you a question. What is your favorite scary movie?
Now that I ponder about it, it has to be Conjuring 2. I haven't seen anything that comes close to how frightening that movie was. There are so many parts, just little details in that scene where the main character is walking into this piano-esque sunroom. It's a little dark, and you see this painting on the wall, and it's the painting of the nun who is the demon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know something's going to happen, but you don't know when. And it's just like the anticipation. I've never felt such an anticipation before in a horror flick like that. And my heart was, I literally checked my heart rate, and it was about 125. And I was like, all right, this is bad. This is unhealthy. I need to get out of here. And the nun peers out. Like, it was just so fucking scary.
It had some good scares in it. Is that the one that opens with like the DeFeo murders, from like Amityville horror?
Yes, Amityville. Yeah.
Yeah. That was really like when I first saw that in theaters, I remember really appreciating that because I was just prior very fascinated by that real life crime that took place, and my morbid curiosity got the best of me, and I was reading all these reports and looking at all these crime scene photos, and what they reproduce in the film is very, very accurate.
Yes, and that's what's crazy about it is because it is a true story,
right?
And you're like, how? And when you see it, you're just like, I hope this doesn't happen to me,
right?
One
thing they were really successful at is taking something based in real life, eyewitness accounts and documentation, extrapolating or really building upon that to create, this story, kind of working with that as source material and really presenting what I thought was a very, compelling, scary movie for the time.
Yeah. But now, since we're talking about Scream, it's definitely a close second on my list because it's both Screamalicious, and I really, really enjoy the plot of this film. So, what's
not to love? Like this one really set the bar. I mean, like I said, everything following it just tried to copy what Scream had done. And one that comes to mind is Urban Legend. Did you ever see that one?
Yes.
That's one I need to see. I need to see that one again.
Oh my God. Classic. So many classics.
I know.
We picked such a good topic to talk about.
We did. And this is your pick, man. I really appreciate it. And I really hate it when people ask me what my favorite movie is or favorite horror movie is because there's just so many great ones to pick from. And I love certain ones for particular reasons, not because I think they're especially great movies. There's some that are really bad that I enjoyed, but A Nightmare on Elm Street is probably my favorite horror franchise. But if I had to pick one well-rounded scary movie that I love, I'd have to pick Poltergeist. And it's probably because it was pretty much ghost directed by Steven Spielberg. And not to take anything away from Tobe Hooper as a director, but it just feels very solid as a movie and as a story.
Yeah.
The sequel is pretty good too. I didn't see the third one, but so let's talk about Scream a little bit. Let's give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background. So as I'm sure you all know out there in podcast land, this was directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson, ECU alum, class of 1987. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
The film stars David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich, and Drew Barrymore. It was inspired by the real-life case of the Gainesville Ripper and influenced by Williamson's passion for horror movies, especially the 1978 Halloween. This film was credited with revitalizing the horror genre in the 1990s, which was considered to be almost dead following an influx of direct-to-video titles, a lot of sequels from very established horror franchises of the 80s. So Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, Friday the 13th. 3 sequels did follow. And for a long time, it was a very compact trilogy. And I had the trilogy box set, and then they did the 4th one, which I saw in theaters, but I didn't really like that much at the time. I need to go back and rewatch it. There was also a TV reimagining series on MTV, the 3rd season of which actually premieres tonight on the July 8th on VH1, I believe.
So out of all 4 original movies in the series, which one is your favorite or most preferred to watch?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I would have to say this one is my favorite, but the one that I think I've watched the most was the 3rd one. And I actually rewatched it just after watching the first one for the podcast. And I think it holds up. I mean, it's not a great movie, but I think it's a good sequel. It tries to expand upon the mythology of the first 2 in believable ways while still having fun with the meta commentary that it has. The 4th one just really took it to 11 to a point where I just didn't enjoy it as much. It seemed like so self-aware that it took me out of the story. Did you see the 4th one?
No, No, I didn't. I've only seen 1 through 3. I've been wanting to see the fourth one for a long time now. But I mean, seeing what you say about it, for this plot and for the plot of Scream, I feel like you can only do so much.
Right. And I think that since this movie is very self-aware, or the franchise is that, Randy makes a big deal out of it in the third movie that this is the continuing chapter of a trilogy, like that having its own rules. And I really liked that. And I think maybe the fourth one commented on that. So, now it's a quadrilogy, like Alien, or something like that.
Right.
And which is a thing. But at the same time, there's just something about a trilogy that makes sense to me. I mean, most of the great franchises out there are limited by those constraints. The original Star Wars, for example.
Exactly.
Or Back to the Future, which Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale said that there will never, ever, ever be a fourth Back to the Future for that very reason, because it was the design of it as a trilogy was intentional, and to create a fourth one would not only be risky, but it would completely break that structure that they created.
Yeah, and most people accept the trilogies. A trilogy, I don't know what it is, but it's like when you have a storyline and you have those cliffhangers that end each movie, it feels like you can only carry that story so far in 3 separate films.
Right.
Marvel was only able to do as much as they did because of how many characters they had.
Right. But, they have such they have an entire universe that they're working with, and a really rich corpus of material to work from. And so it makes sense how they're approaching that. Like they're really maximizing the sequel potential, or prequel potential, or remake potential of that world. I mean, just think about if we go back a little bit further. I'm trying to think of other trilogies. Beverly Hills Cop. Here's a good example of a trilogy that was severely damaged by a fourth movie: Indiana Jones.
Yes.
So the original trilogy, very solid. Then they bring in that garbage Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I remember sitting in the theater just being nauseated by how bad it was.
Jeez.
But that's me. I know most people don't like it, and if there's somebody listening that likes it, we would be very interested in hearing your take.
I agree. Yeah, please. Like, the discussion is real, y'all. Parts of the Caribbean is no different. They had 3
that's right,
like solid movies. Then they come out with a fourth one. I mean, there's some love, there's some hate with that movie, but in my personal opinion, I think the directors felt like they wanted to solo Jack Sparrow for a lot of this. So that's why they went for the fourth one with the third one. I absolutely loved it. Hands down the best, in my opinion, of the series. But then they had the fourth and the fifth, and it was just like, okay, I get what you're doing. Let's not try to have a sixth, because I don't see the significance of it.
Right.
Because you've already carried so much out of each character. And for the fifth one, hurrah, applause. They found closure with everything, which is, I think, what all the fans wanted. But yeah, so some movies I think definitely are 3 and only 3.
Yeah, I mean, Godfather, and if we want to go back to Star Wars, I mean, they are very neatly designed as sets of trilogies.
Right.
You've got this 9-part story that, I mean, granted, it was shot, 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, 3, now 7, 8, 9. The fact that they are handled in kind of those sets, it creates some perimeters around the story,
Right.
Right. But anyway, sorry, we didn't mean to digress there on our sequel and franchise trilogy tirade. Principal photography for Scream took place over 8 weeks between April 15th and June 8th, 1996, on a budget of $15 million. And the great K&B effects team, Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman, and Greg Nicotero, handled the gore on this movie. Great guys. This film was sent to the MPAA over 9 times. Every time it went to the MPAA, Craven had to cut out more of the film's gory shots. But then producer Bob Weinstein stepped in and got them the R rating. And Craven later found out that Weinstein went to the MPAA and told them to view the film as a comedy and not a horror film. And that completely changed the MPAA's viewpoint. Let's see, what else? This film was released in December, 5 days before Christmas. And this was intentional because, during the holiday season, family-friendly movies are usually released, and they wanted to give the horror audience something, so there wouldn't be much competition there. And it opened at number 4, almost $6.5 million, which led the studio to think that it was a flop. But the word of mouth really contributed to a success at the box office. Every week it went up or stayed at the same place, and by the end of its theatrical run, it made over $100 million at the box office.
Wow, man.
And my favorite bit of trivia about this movie is that the use of caller ID increased more than threefold after the release of this film.
Oh, wow.
I wonder why. So this movie was released on VHS, June 24th, 1997. Then later a special release had the Scream 2 trailer, and that was released on December 2nd, 97. Came out on Laserdisc, an uncut version, on July 2nd, 1997, and on DVD, December 3rd, 1997. So it came out on all formats in the same year. And this movie took home the 1997 MTV Movie Award for Best Picture.
That's huge.
and it is a very MTV movie. I mean, they eventually did do the series, but it's just, just a very teen-centric film. It's fun. It's hip. Like it makes sense that
it's got so much in it.
It does. And it's a lot of fun. And teens were talking about it at the time. Let's see so this came out when you were born, right?
Yeah.
So I was 11. So, gosh, I really wish I could remember when I first saw this. I feel like this was a movie that, you got a Blockbuster with your friends and you see it like, yeah, let's watch a scary movie.
It's a nice Friday night film,
It is. It is a great Friday night film. And it's one of those that, it's good to watch with a group of people.
Yeah.
Especially like when you get to that really long scene towards the end in the house. Mm-hmm. You share that dynamic of watching a scary movie while this group of people in the house are watching a scary movie.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So let's give you a few more little tidbits that we found on the web, Wikipedia, IMDb, and so forth. So this was originally developed under the title Scary Movie by Kevin Williamson. He was then an aspiring screenwriter.
And he was influenced by a news story he was watching about a series of grisly murders by the Gainesville Ripper. Williamson, he became concerned about the intruders upon finding an open window in the house where he was staying.
And he was inspired to draft an 18-page script treatment about a young woman alone in a house who is taunted over the phone and then attacked by a masked killer.
The treatment remained as a short story while Williamson worked on another script, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, it was called, a thriller that he would eventually sell, but would languish in development for many, many years.
And struggling to pay his bills, Williamson secluded himself in Palm Springs and focused on developing his scary movie treatment, hoping for a quick sale to meet his financial needs. And over the course of 3 days, Williamson pumped out a full-length script as well as 2 separate 5-page outlines for potential sequels, Scary Movie 2 and Scary Movie 3, and he hoped to entice buyers with a potential for a franchise, which on his part, really great selling point.
Big facts. In an interview, he said that one reason he focused on the Scary Movie script was because it was a film he wanted to watch. Nobody else was making it, he said. So, I mean, if I were him, I would have felt the same way. Like, if no one else is making it, let's
right.
Go ahead and try.
And that's what you hear a lot of artists talking about in terms of what they create. They create things that they want to watch or see or experience, listen to. So they have to do it themselves. And so that's how this stuff gets into the mainstream. And it's interesting, too, that later on we would get those parodies of Scream and other scary movies called Scary Movie.
I don't know. It's like Scary Movie.
Rated R.
Oh. Viewer discretion advised.
There is a great, I can't find it anywhere, but there was a commercial for Hollywood Video back in the 90s, right after Scream 2 came out on video. And there's this couple go up to the counter and they ask the clerk, "Can you tell me a little bit about this movie?" And the guy bends down and he knocks on this door under the counter. And he's like, "Don, we need you." And this guy crawls out. This is Don LaFontaine, who does all of the trailer, did all the trailer stuff. And he looks at the video cassette, and then he does this. I can't do his voices. Someone has taken their love of sequels one step too far. Somebody doesn't want the terror to end. From Dimension Home Video, Scream 2, rated R. And the clerk's just like, that was good, Don. Mm-hmm. He just crawls back under the counter.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really, really great. Really great. I wish I could do that voice, man. If you could do that voice, you could get some voiceover work from here to Sunday.
It's a voice worth millions.
So we've got a little segment here. We pulled this from Wikipedia, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about because there were a few incidents where this film was thought to have influenced others to kill.
Mm-hmm. And side note to viewers, like this is some pretty raunchy, real and gory stuff. So just be prepared.
So in 1998, 16-year-old Mario Padilla and his 14-year-old cousin Samuel Ramirez stabbed Mario's mother 45 times, killing her. And the case became known as the Scream murder and fell under intense media scrutiny after the boys claimed they were inspired by Scream and Scream 2. And the pair confessed needing money acquired from Gina's murder to fund a killing spree, which would include purchasing 2 Ghostfaced costumes as well as a voice changer. And during the trial, the psychologist, Madeline Levine, who studied the effect of violence on children, had stated there were a whole bunch of reasons why they acted out this way, but did this movie provide a blueprint? Absolutely. Now, this case was expected to highlight the effect of violent films on teenagers. However, presiding judge John Chorosky ordered the evidence pertaining to Scream be barred and that the case not be referred to as the Scream murder, refusing media access to the courtroom, intending that the case be tried as murder and nothing else.
That's like sends chills down your spine.
I know. And you've got a story too.
Yeah. So on January 17th, 1999, 13-year-old Ashley Murray was stabbed multiple times in the back and head before being left for dead by his then friends Daniel Gill, 14 years of age, and Robert Fuller, 15 years of age. He was later found and saved by an elderly man walking his dog. The pair were dubbed the Scream attackers, quote unquote, after it emerged that they had watched Scream shortly before the attack, and drawings of the Ghostface mask were found among their possessions. Their actions were additionally blamed on physical abuse, drugs, and exposure to black magic and their home life. Murray, who later testified against the pair, stated that he believed the film may have influenced the pair to attack him.
This is interesting because it's like whenever you find out that someone accused of murder had watched something or listened to something, that was the cause. That's what inspired them or motivated them to kill. And so famously, I mean, this would be getting into a whole thing, but with Columbine, like when that happened, the media was out to, or everybody was out to point the finger at somebody. It was Marilyn Manson's music. It was KMFDM's music. It was them playing Doom on their PCs. So it's violent video games and music, and all of that was what turned these kids bad and made them kill. And after the Columbine massacre happened, this was on May 4th, so just a few weeks after, really, there was this increasing news media report on the effects of violent films and games and other media. And the United States Senate Commerce Committee held a hearing about Hollywood's marketing of films to youths, and the committee focused specifically on horror films. And they used the opening scene of Scream, where Casey Becker is killed, Drew Barrymore's character. That was shown to the committee as an example of negative media which may be viewed by children.
Yeah, it's in Columbine. Good God, that was an event that like spiraled the nation into anger with violence and violent influences like video games.
Absolutely. And I mean, my microphone is actually resting on this Columbine.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Book by Dave Collin. But it's a fascinating case. But the whole thing about, having people, these artists who create music or video games or movies, having to go before a committee and defend their art, the products that they've created, is really, really bizarre kind of thing that they have to do that. I mean, I remember, I think it was in the 80s where you had these musicians, you had like Dee Snider from Twisted Sister and other people go before a committee and explain how this music was not intended, to influence people in a certain way, that this was a kind of artistic expression, and that, all of these things that they do in their show and on stage, like this is all part of an act. This is all part of the entertainment. Like it's not this is not who we really are. Like, we don't walk around in this makeup and dressed in black all the time kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention something about influence pertaining to the Scream franchise specifically. Back around 98, I guess, whenever Scream 2 came out, and this was before Columbine, I was on the web just looking for information on the film. There was a message board that I came across, and there were people on there actively looking for an accomplice to commit a crime, a copycat crime. And it was fascinating. I was fascinated then, and I'm fascinated even more now because you had people auditioning, or it was kind of like matchmaking for wannabe serial killers.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know what you do with that, but I don't think it was that serious. I mean, I hope not. I mean, but you had people talking, like they were having that conversation, and you could see the thread. You could see it unfold, like kind of what their strengths, weaknesses are, what they would do if they, had a partner in crime and stuff. So I think that certainly these movies are that people can be influenced to a negative degree, but it's not because that media is inherently bad. It is what effect it has on people who are there's already something wrong, or there's already some susceptibility or some predisposition that it's how they interpret that media. Does that make sense?
So bouncing off that, it's like a fire. You build a fire and it just ignites after you put more and more twigs on it or something that helps it build. And with our case here, what we're talking about is that something else built that fire. But these video games and movies are what help it really ignite and burn,
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of like on its own, it's relatively benign, but when you it's like epoxy, like you put the two together and it combusts, it creates something new.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. So, Joseph, are you about ready to stalk through this movie?
I'm ready to watch a scary movie, Brandon.
All right, let's go.
And now, our feature presentation.
You get the Dimension Films logo, then the main title, Scream, with screams in the background and a gunshot.
Yeah,
which is kind of weird. I don't really understand what that's all about. But we get the strobing of like police lights and stuff, and then boom, we're right into the action.
and with this scene starting and everything, we get this phone call. We have a young girl, Drew Barrymore. She's home alone, it looks like, right? And she's cooking some popcorn. Friday night movie. Like, let's chill in the hizzle with I guess her boyfriend is somewhere. But while she's talking to this stranger on the phone, girl, hang up. Because this dialogue that's happening right now gets on the phone, and this guy who sounds like a sketchy 20-year-old Jack Nicholson, who's had some liquor the past hour, has the following dialogue. People, all right, just it's like, who is this? Who are you trying to reach? What number is this? What number are you trying to reach? I don't know. Like, why are you saying I don't know?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. It's like you wouldn't really spend that much effort talking to a stranger on the phone. I mean, I think I'm a pretty nice guy, but I think if somebody called me and said, "Who is this?" I wouldn't say, "Who are you trying to reach?" I would say my name, and if they said, "Oh, well, I'm trying to get in touch with Edith," well, I'm clearly not Edith. So
exactly. So thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, who are you trying to reach? I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever.
So, okay, bye now.
Stalker.
Wait, don't hang up. I want to talk to you for a second. It's like, and she just wants, and she just buys into it. Maybe, I mean, is she really that lonely just hanging out? I mean, I know she's got to wait for a popcorn to pop, but my goodness.
Yeah, still, like, you're talking to a complete stranger, like, I guess she grew up bad childhood.
Or she's just painfully nice. I mean, she says she's getting ready to watch a video, says it's a scary movie, and asks what her favorite scary movie is. And, what she say? Oh, Halloween. The one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters. And she tries to guess what his is. And I like his response. It's a little weird. She's like, "Oh, A Nightmare on Elm Street." He's like, Is that the one where the guy had knives for fingers? Yeah, Freddy Krueger. Yeah, Freddy. That's right. I liked that movie. It was scary. You know? It's like you were really
you're just like
the one with knives, the guy with knives for fingers. Like, really? There were like 6 of those movies out by then. You never heard of Freddy? But she was like, oh yeah, the first one was good, but the rest sucked. And of course, a nice little nod because Wes Craven directed the first one and New Nightmare, of course. And he asked her if she has a boyfriend. And she's like, what? You want to ask me out on a date? and so, but it's interesting that, this voice, it's not a modulated voice. It's not modified in any way. This is a voice actor's natural, well, it's not natural voice, but this is a voice that he created for this character of Ghostface, Roger L. Jackson. So Drew Barrymore and Neve Campbell, they never met Roger Jackson, who did the voice of Ghostface before shooting began. So whenever they're talking on the phone to the killer, they're actually talking to him on the phone. So there's not somebody reading lines for them to react to. They're hearing his voice. And so this conversation is starting to escalate. Now you got to remember too, the caller ID had just come out the year before, and it took a while for people to get a standalone caller ID device, and I believe you even had to pay for that service through your landline provider. But the killer, he really tips his hand whenever he says, what does she say? Oh, why do you want to know my name? And he's like, because I want to know who I'm looking at.
Right.
And then that's where everything kind of changes. Yeah. And then she gets spooked and she's like, oh, I got to go. He's like, oh, wait, I thought we were going to go out. And so
listen here, Pipsqueak.
So he calls back a few times, and then we get to she said, "Oh, my boyfriend's gonna, he's big and he plays football and he'll beat the shit out of you." And he says, "His name wouldn't be Steve, would it?" How do you know his name? Turn on the patio light. And so that we see Steve outside. He's all tied up and he's bloody. So she said, the killer says that we're gonna play a little game of movie trivia. So gives her a warm-up question. What was it? It was Halloween, right?
Yeah, it was Halloween. Like who was the guy? Who was the guy that was stalking everybody, the babysitters, and he was asking her to name him.
Come on, it's your favorite scary movie, remember? You wore the white mask, you stalked the babysitters. And so she finally blurts out Michael Myers. And then it's time for the real question. This is really great. And I love asking people this question. Who was the killer in Friday the 13th? And she's just, Jason. He's like, I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer. And she's like, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times. It's like, well, if you did, then you would know that Mrs. Voorhees was the original killer and Jason didn't show up until the sequel.
Right. It's such a good question to ask, though.
It really is. And like, this is, before when he was making the comment about, like, not really sure what she was talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, was that the Freddy thing? But here it shows he's got really specific, detailed knowledge of scary movies. He knows that this is something most people wouldn't get right.
Right.
And so I thought that was really, really good. But
that's awesome.
So Steve, so he's out of the picture. He gets gutted. He gets eviscerated right out there on the patio. And this is interesting. To keep Drew Barrymore looking scared and crying, Wes Craven kept telling her real life stories about animal cruelty because she was like a really keen animal lover in real life.
Jeez. Oh my God.
And he's such a sweet guy. You hear him in interviews. He was like, I didn't want to do it, but this is what, what got the reaction out of her, which is funny because just a tiny digression in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There's Miko Hughes plays Heather Langenkamp's son in that movie. And when the scenes where he needed to cry or be upset, Wes Craven had asked the parent, Miko Hughes' parents, what they could do to make him cry like that. And the parents said, well, there is something, but we don't really like to do it. And it was Wes Craven to tell Miko that his parents had died. This little 5-6-year-old kid.
Jeez.
You got this sweet Wes Craven telling this little boy that his parents are dead. That's how they got that reaction.
Oh man.
So anyway, I thought that was funny.
Jeez.
So the killer taunts her, throws a chair through the door.
And meanwhile, popcorn is on fire.
Yeah. So that's going off, and the smoke alarm starts going off eventually. We keep cutting back to the burning Jiffy Pop on the stove, and there's a moment where she goes outside and she sees Ghostface stalking through the house, and then encounters him. It's a good little scare. He's got his back turned to her, and she's like coming up to the window, and he spins around and grabs her through the window. If you look carefully, the mask changes in the next scene. So first of all, the mask was discovered by Wes Craven while scouting for film locations in California, and he was walking through a possible filming house, and inside one of the rooms he saw the mask hanging on the wall. And he sent a picture to Dimension Films, and they told him to have the prop department make something similar, as they didn't want to, or that they didn't own the rights to it, to use that mask. And so some scenes were shot with a similar mask because they didn't yet have those rights for the Fun World Ghostface mask. That was the original manufacturer. And so like the scene when Casey runs outside, it's that slow motion shot and Ghostface is running up behind her and she gets stabbed for the first time. That's the similar custom made one. It's very subtle.
Wow.
The eyes are just a little bit narrower, and the chin piece in the Fun World mask, the one they use for the rest of the movie, it's like this protruding jaw. But for this similar one, the fabric for the hood actually attached to the back of the chin, and it's like a gray fabric. So if you look closely, you'll see that mask in that shot. But in the very next shot, when Ghostface is on top of Casey, it's the Fun World mask. I hope you followed all that.
Wow.
And I thought this was interesting. So during production, Ghostface, the black robe was originally going to be white to make him appear more like a ghost. But this was changed in fear of people comparing the costume to those of the Ku Klux Klan. You think? Wouldn't it be funny if he had the white outfit and he pulls the mask off and it's Forrest Gump or Nathan Bedford Forrest?
Oh, jeez.
I just listened to We Hate Movies. It's a great podcast, but they had an episode released on Patreon on Forrest Gump, and they had a lot of fun with that. The Ku Klux Klan riding around on the bed sheets and horses and bed sheets.
I could only see during this scene when he goes up to stab her. He's like, "Do you watch scary movies?"
I like scary movies. My mom always said, "Scary movies."
With scary movies, you never know what you're going to get.
I can imagine him sitting outside on a park bench in Savannah, Georgia, at a bus stop, talking to some stranger about scary movies. While offering them chocolate.
And he's dressed up in a Scream costume.
I'd like to see that. I think I'd like to see that. So Casey gets stabbed, and meanwhile the parents are arriving, and she sees them, but they don't see her, and she's so helpless. Like she's trying to scream, but it just comes out just breathy. So Ghostface has his way with her, stabs her some more on her legs and her arms and everything. And as he's about to deliver the final blow or stab, I guess, Casey manages to pull the mask off. And of course, the camera's like, no, movie. So we pan up to the knife raised above Ghostface's head so we don't see who it is. She stabs some more, is dragged off. Now, they see the smoke and everything. The parents do in the house. The mother picks up the phone and she can hear Casey on the other line because Casey's got the cordless phone in her hand. So they know something's wrong. And so the father tells the mother to go to the Mackenzies or drive to the Mackenzies. And this is the same thing that Laurie tells Lindsay and Tommy to do in Halloween 78. We get another little homage bit from Halloween there.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, it's really great. So the mom goes outside and she screams bloody murder, and then she sees bloody murder. We see Casey strung up from this tree, and her entrails are on the ground, steam rising off of them. And we do this really quick track in, and then we cut to Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott, and she's at the computer doing something or other. So Wes Craven had seen Neve Campbell in Party of Five. It was a show on 94, and had asked her to audition for the part because he believed that she could portray a very innocent character who could also realistically handle herself while dealing with, the physical conflict and emotions that the role required. Very similar to how he approached the casting of Heather Langenkamp in A Nightmare on Elm Street. So someone who was kind of the girl next door, but also had this strength about her.
Right.
And so she hears a noise, and then boyfriend Billy Loomis comes in through the window, just like Glenn from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Another nice reference.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of those in this movie. I mean, they're just peppered throughout, and there's even more that I never noticed until I watched it and started doing research. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But Skeet Ulrich,
he actually, guys, it's funny that like how many references we're doing in this film, because this guy plays the boyfriend. For those of you who keep up with the CW's TV series Riverdale, he plays as F.P. Jones. Just a nice little film connection there. Of course, he's all old and grown up now, but still has that nice boyish face.
yeah. That's a show I need to watch. I've heard good things about it.
Really good, really good.
Another Halloween connection here that actually goes back to Psycho. So I'm sure you noticed that in Psycho, the boyfriend, Marion Crane's boyfriend, was named Samuel Loomis, and that was the doctor's name in the 1978 Halloween. In this movie, we have Billy Loomis as this boyfriend, as Sidney's boyfriend, and so we can trace this. Now, I was reading this academic article, and it refers to this kind of thing as intertextual referencing, where you have you've got within this one text it references other texts, and so it just sounds really fancy, but it just means that there are references to other movies in this movie. Now, so the Sidney's dad tries to come in, and the door. This is an important setup. So he's trying to get in through the bedroom door. Now, there's a closet door behind that is they both swing outwards, and when they're so close together that they jam, so the father can't get in. And Billy hides. Dad says he's going out of town. I'm going to be at the Hilton. If you need anything, call me. So I could have swore I heard you screaming in here. She just kisses him and goes on. He goes on his way. Billy comes out of hiding. Now, what was it that inspired him to come over to Sidney's house in the first place?
I feel like a good boyfriend would communicate to his girlfriend, be like, "Hey, I'm coming over, BT Dubs." Like, just be ready and know. He had to come like a damn stalker in the night. I don't know, Brennan. I felt some very eerie stuff about this scene. Did you?
And it was probably because he says that The Exorcist was on, and I got to thinking of you. Got to thinking about us.
Who says that? This sequence of dialogue that we're about to discuss constantly reminds me how not to be in a relationship. Like this is a pure dirtbag move right here of what exactly is about to happen. So,
well, from his introduction, I mean, the movie tells you this is the guy, this is the killer. Right. He just, there's something about him that looks bad, and he's talking.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, and he's talking about scary movies constantly. Yeah. I mean, this is part of this like reverse red herring thing that Williamson is going for, which is I think it's effective. I don't remember seeing it coming, not seeing the ending coming, but yeah, he's talking about The Exorcist was on. I thought of you. It was the edited for TV version, so all the good stuff was cut out, and it got me thinking about our relationship, and he starts using this rating system as a metaphor for their relationship, which is so bizarre. Like talks about in the beginning we started all hot and heavy, and it's just like over time they've gotten tamer and tamer, and he does this. I thought maybe we could try a little on top of the clothes stuff.
Like what? hey, we're going from rated R to rated PG-13. Let's try rated G. Let's see if G's
some on top of the clothes stuff. I mean, these characters are what, seniors in high school?
Yeah.
Or at least that's what they look like. I mean, they're probably in their early 20s, but I mean, my goodness. No, they were probably older than that, because I think David Arquette he's supposed to be 25 in this movie, but he's actually younger than these characters, or than these actors. But that's a whole other thing about high schoolers in movies being played by 30-year-olds, like we saw in Christine.
Very true. Yep.
So Billy makes a move. They start making out, and he's shot down, and he says, "Oh, you see what you do to me." there's some cringy moments here in the dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, and again, not only is this directed by Wes Craven and Billy comes through the window like Glenn does in A Nightmare on Elm Street, but Skeet, I think his casting is intentional because he kind of favors a young Johnny Depp.
Yes, he does. I can tell. At first by the way he looks, but second by the way he presents himself. Like it's very loose, but very sincere at the same time.
Right. And there's something about his, like he has this mystique about him, like this, I don't know, like he's got a secret, you know,
right.
And it's not that he's necessarily threatening, but there's something just under the surface that you know is there, but you just don't know the nature of it at this point, if that makes sense.
It does.
So this is something I didn't notice until this week. As they're talking, before Billy leaves, there's a song playing in the background, very softly, very quietly. This is a cover of Don't Fear the Reaper. This version is done by Gus Black. You can barely hear it, but this is another nod to Halloween because the original by Blue Oyster Cult plays in that film, the 1978 Halloween. I encourage you to go look this song up. It's on YouTube, but it's a really, really damn good cover. Like it's one of the better covers I've heard in a while. It's kind of sensual and moody. Yeah, just go check that out if you get a chance.
And it was a perfect fit in this film. Like compared to the original, I love how they just remastered it, and it was very well done. Just revamping it, you could just feel the emotion.
I mean, if you pay attention, like if you recognize the song as "Don't Fear the Reaper," it almost since we're seeing Billy, the movie is almost saying, you know, very quietly, it's whispering to you that, hey, this is the guy.
Right. Yeah.
Don't fear the Reaper. Here he is, audience.
Oh my gosh.
And just before he leaves, of course, Sydney asks him if he would settle for a PG-13 relationship and flashes her tits at him. And he just kind of sheepishly laughs about it before he goes. I don't know. It was very strange to me.
Like, that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to hop out of the window.
Yeah, I got to go now. I got to go kill some more people. So boom, we're at Woodsboro High. There's a police presence there. Now, the high school scenes were originally going to be shot at Santa Rosa High School in California, but very close to the shooting date, the school board read the script and denied the film to be shot there due to its violent nature, and because they had the impression that the film was a comedy. And production was moved to Healdsburg, California. And as payback, Wes Craven put in the end credits under the special thanks section, quote, "No thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board."
That's hilarious.
Nice little crazy credit there. We meet reporter Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, and Sid's friend Tatum, played by Rose McGowan. Now, this top story cameraman, Kenny, he's played by W. Earl Brown, who played a coroner in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And he's also in the show Deadwood, which just kind of came back for a movie extension of the series. It's an HBO thing, but he's really great on that show. Go check that out. Next, we meet Principal Hembry, played by the Fonz himself, Henry Winkler.
Honestly, the OGs of OGs. If you object, just please see the door. Like, honestly, this guy's the one.
Only. He's really great. And if you don't, go follow him on Twitter. Like he's got some really great stuff on there. He's really funny, and he likes posting pictures of him going fishing. Yeah, he's just a really sweet guy. Then we get Dewey Riley, played by David Arquette, a young man of the law who takes his job very seriously. Because I think at one point, Sidney refers to him as Dewey, and he's got it's Deputy Riley today, Sid. and Sheriff Burke, who was also in A Nightmare on Elm Street as Sergeant Parker. Now, then we see our little clique of pals hanging out by the fountain. We get Sid, Tatum, Billy, Stu, and Randy. So we're meeting a lot of new characters here. We're setting things up pretty quickly. We meet Matthew Lillard as Stu. I love this guy. His
energy is like off the charts. Literally just compared to anybody in this movie, his energy level is just incomparable. It's crazy.
It's like 10 times what it is of any other character.
Right.
And it's interesting, like for example, so Courtney Cox and David Arquette, they met on this movie. They fell in love and they eventually married. They later divorced in like 2013. But Neve Campbell and Matthew Lillard actually dated for a short time.
Wow.
And his casting was kind of accidental. He was cast as Stu by chance. He was accompanying his then girlfriend to an unrelated audition taking place elsewhere in the same building, and casting director Lisa Beach saw Lillard in the hallway and said, "Hey, would you like to audition for this part?"
Oh my gosh.
So that's pretty cool. That's pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
That never happens. Then we meet Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, who has somewhat of a career left, I think. I don't know. He had the Jamie Kennedy Project, and he was in Son of the Mask, and
Yep. That was pretty good.
the latest Tremors movie. So they're all establishing their alibis, where they were the night before that Casey Becker was killed. And Jamie Kennedy's pretty funny in this, and I love this this Jerry Lewis impression that he does. Did you really put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard you put her liver in the mailbox next to her spleen and her pancreas. Everybody's pointing the finger at each other, but having a little fun with it. But yeah, and like Matthew Lillard does this liver alone thing, you know.
What a pun.
Liver alone. Liver. It was a joke. So Sid is dropped off at home by bus. She's still taking the bus, really? And she doesn't. None of these characters have a car.
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer to that.
The only character that I know for sure has a car is Tatum, because she drives like a Bug, a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah. So
she arrives. This is this nice house. It's a big one. It's overlooking the mountains and lots of trees. And now this score, it's a really good score. It's done by Marco Beltrami, who has said he avoided traditional horror motifs in this score and drew primarily from Western influences. And so you can hear it for sure.
It's very obvious. Yep. And it gives its own unique texture too, because a lot of like horror film, like the first movie in a horror series, at least they all have some type of similar nature. And very good horror flicks like Halloween, for example, you know immediately what it is based off of the piano riffs, right? Mm-hmm. Or Nightmare on Elm Street, very distinct little string synths. You know, so I'm glad that they took this to the next level with their unique style as well.
Yeah, I mean, you really nailed it when you were talking about the textures, because there are some there are voices, there's like a chorus there, or a single. What do you call just a single person? Not a chorus, but it's a solo
choiree.
A choiree. Kind of thing. But we hear some like nylon guitar, and there's these weird little. They're not traditional stingers, like in Psycho we get the ring, 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 ring kind of thing. Or Halloween has its own little stingers, but in this one it's almost this kind of what I refer to as like a confused dog sound. Because sound with a little bit of percussion there. Yes, it's really distinctive. Yeah, I mean, I think it really kind of established. I mean, it's a very kind of minimal score, but I think it's very effective and very original.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Sid. It turns on the news. Woodsboro double murders going on. I mean, basically that's what everybody's talking about. The lime green outfit on Gale, like I don't know, it was like sun shining in my eyes. I was just pierced by the blindness when the channel flipped to her.
This movie is so 90s, but that dress or that outfit is it is a blazingly lime green. It is crazy. And she wears it for most of the movie.
It's yes. Oh my god. And well, let's give her credit for her explosiveness in outfits and really setting the bar of expectations in terms of fashion. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to do that every day, really get out there with the colors. I just happen to go black and white and gray all the time, but it's fine. It's fine.
That's right. That's right. And in the 90s, man, like that was the time to show your colors, because everything was fluorescent. Just bright yellows and oranges and especially neon green. I mean, just think about Nickelodeon, bright greens and bright oranges and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We've been getting hints of it, but now we learn that Maureen Prescott, Sid's mother, was murdered a year prior. This really gives a good backstory of what we're dealing with here.
Right. So we're seeing kind of that baggage that Sid has, but we're setting up a possible connection, since the anniversary of that death is coming up like in a day or two.
Right. After we see Sid going through the channels, Tatum, Sid's friend, she calls. She's going to come by later after stopping at the video store to pick up all the right moves, is what they were talking about, thinking about watching.
Yeah, because if you pause it at just the right time, you can see Tom Cruise's penis.
Yeah. So distinctive, I guess, just his penis just sets off the rest. Oh my God. So that phone call ends. I don't know about you, Brandon. Like when she set the phone down, I was just like, well, there's going to be a moment of silence. And then I think we're going to hear another phone call here because we have to get some type of suspense going. So another phone call.
I wonder who it is.
She thinks it's Randy the whole time, with the voice over and
she thinks it's
him
sexy.
trying to scare her. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, rewind. I don't know what Randy's trying to make moves here.
Right. Well, and I think she's aware that Randy is kind of into her because he confesses that to other people and they laugh at him.
Right.
It almost seems cruel, that if she thinks that it's Randy
very cruel.
And she's fake flirting with him or whatever, that's just kind of pushing more buttons or twisting the knife, so to speak, a little bit more.
Right. Maybe if it was Billy, I'd be like, all right, sure, cool. But Randy, like, come on. Yeah. So she thinks it's Randy. Makes a comment about horror movies, girls being stupid and going up the stairs when they should be going out the front door, which is what she almost immediately does, which is, somewhat genius, right?
Right. I mean, it shows that even though she's aware of what are the tropes of horror movies and what rational people should do in those situations in real life, that's not compatible because she is in the confines of a horror movie. Therefore, that's what she instinctively does is run up the stairs when she should be going out the front door.
Right. And then Ghostface says he's on the porch. And I'm like, all right, well, Sid, you can go on the porch. You can't go on the porch. It's up to you, girl. She is bitching, fearless. She's like, I'm going out here. She goes out on the porch, calls his bluff, like, screw you, asshole, right?
Yeah, she puts her finger in her nose. It's like, what am I doing? Huh?
Yeah,
what am I doing? Huh? Nice try, Randy.
This is pretty clever because it makes sense given the whole dynamic killing duo angle. What do you think about all that?
Well, I mean, so when she asked that, like, what, just to confirm that she's being watched, she says, what am I doing? She puts her finger in her nose and he doesn't say anything. And so,
right.
So we can assume that he really can't see her and that he's just the voice and the other killer, Stu or Billy, is the one inside the house because when she goes back in the house, he jumps out at her. And so I don't know. I thought that was good. I thought that was really good. But he makes that comment about her mother, like, he says, do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't. And that's when she realizes that, hey, this is not Randy. And she's like, fuck you, you cretin. Which is not an insult that you hear very often.
Yeah.
So Ghostface pops out and attacks her. She runs upstairs, of course. Ghostface can't get in because the doors are jammed together. It's just this poor architectural design, this little oversight. She tries the phone and it's dead, or it's the sound the phone makes after you heard the dial tone for so long. It would just go dee 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 dee. Which I picked up this is random, but I saw a payphone somewhere in the past month and I picked it up and I heard a dial tone and it sounded so foreign to me because I haven't heard one in like 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
Just that.
Man, and I'm going to be honest, like that sound is pretty scary.
It really
straight up.
And it kind of confused me because like in movies, when somebody hangs up on somebody, they play the dial tone. So, which is not how it works. I don't think.
What happens?
Imagine playing that sound for somebody who was, I don't know, like let's say, when I start teaching next month again, I play that dial tone sound for my students and ask them to identify it. I wonder if they'd be able to. I'd be really curious.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Something you should all go do. You should go on YouTube and look at kids react to, just search for that. And you have kids reacting to payphones and VHS tapes and all this other kind of early technology. And their reactions are batshit crazy. You will feel 100 years old. Go check that out. Anyway, back to Scream. So yeah, she's trying to use the phone and it's not working. And so she uses her computer to dial 911.
Brandon, when I saw this, I was low key mind fucked with the whole process. I mean, honestly, like how in the hell is a computer 911 system supposed to be efficient when you have to type, not talk, but type in the emergency?
Yeah, and this is something that's not introduced earlier in the movie, and it's not mentioned ever again. It's this kind of maybe a text-to-speech program, like some kind of maybe some kind of accessibility thing. I don't know. But it's strange because the phones are down. So how is it connected to anything? Like how is it, how's it connected to, because we didn't, there was no cable internet back then. It was all dial up. So fire up that AOL, baby. Welcome. You've got mail. So she tries to run out the front door, and Dewey is standing there. He's holding the Ghostface mask that he found outside. And I love how he spins around and he just screams like just absolute terror. It's amazing. Oh, I forgot to mention. So before we see Dewey, Billy shows up and he says, "Oh, I saw him. I scared him away." And he's holding her, and he drops the cell phone. And when she looks down, it's like a giveaway to her. And I know that most people didn't have them back then. This is 96, but that was just like the dead giveaway. And so she runs.
Yeah, I was like, did the movie just give us the bad guy 15 minutes in?
No. I mean, the movie's pretty much been ramming it down our throats that it's Billy the whole time. And to do that little switcheroo there at the end. But then Dewey shows up, and Billy is arrested. Tatum shows up. And I love this little brother-sister banter that, because Tatum is Dewey's sister. Let's see, Gail shows up with Kenny, the cameraman. She's still wearing that lime green outfit. Get off to the police station. Dewey's looking for Sid's dad because he never registered at the Hilton, at the hotel that he was going to for this convention or conference. Billy is being questioned. And I love Sheriff Burke asks him, "What were you doing with a cellular telephone, son?" And, it's just... And so he's questioning Billy with Hank, his dad there, and he looks guilty as sin this whole movie. So it's a pretty cool bit of misdirection that it's played really well, because he's confessing his innocence, which doesn't sound believable at all. He's like, "Sheriff, I didn't kill anybody," and there's like no emotion on his face at all. So we find out that this Ghostface costume is actually called Father Death. It's a very common costume found in every five and dime in town. Gail is on the go again. She wants to talk to Sydney and confronts her in the back alley of the police station with the media behind her. And we learn that Gail wrote a book, and it was about Sid's mother's murder. And she tells Sid that, "I'll send you a copy," and then just clocks her right in the jaw.
What a scene.
Yeah, I know. It's great. And so Sydney is sleeping over at the Rileys, and she and Tatum are, it's great. Tatum's got this like stuffed bunny, and "I'll send you a copy." Bam, bitch went down. Bam, Sid, super bitch.
What a mega bitch.
Mega bitch.
Mega bitch.
and Tatum is molesting this stuffed bunny the whole time. Did you notice that? She's just like rubbing it all around.
Like, I was like, what? Tatum getting handsy.
Getting a little handsy there. I'll hop along there. And Mrs. Riley comes in and says that there's a phone call for Sid. It's Ghostface. He does the, "Hello, Sydney. Looks like you fingered the wrong guy again." And so Dewey, he runs in. He's got his gun. He's not ready to go. And so they've already walked away from the phone, but he picks it up and he's just like being all cool. It's like, "Hello."
It's me.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'm going to take care of business here. Oh, and this is great because we get the song. We get "Red Right Hand" by Nick Cave, which is kind of a recurring song throughout the series. And whenever I hear it, I think of this movie, but also I think of Dumb and Dumber because it plays in the background when Lloyd goes out for the bare essentials and gets robbed by an old lady on a motorized cart. He's got that giant cowboy hat on.
Oh my God, I thought the same thing.
And that little rubber ball wooden paddle. And so anyway, Sid's watching TV. And so we see the story about Cotton Weary, who was convicted of Sid's mother's murder, played by Liev Schreiber. And he's only in this one shot, I think, of him like getting into a police car in his prison outfit. Comes back later in 2 and 3 as a much bigger like media and attention-hungry character. And he's also a fantastic actor. But there's a moment where Sid is confronted by a reporter, because there's a sea of them that she has to go through. And one of them is this one wearing this zebra striped jacket that's like trying to talk to her, pointing a microphone in Sid's face. That's Linda Blair from The Exorcist in a nice little cameo there. So she comes up to Gail, Sydney does, wants to talk with no camera around. She's like, no way. She's like, your mother's murder was my biggest story last year. She says that you falsely identified Cotton. He was framed by somebody and your testimony put him away. But Sid is insistent in this moment that Cotton murdered my mother because they were having an affair. They did find out that they confirmed through DNA evidence that they were having sex, but they didn't have really any evidence linking him to the murder other than he had or there was a coat with her blood found on it in his vehicle, and he was drunk to sleep.
Just was not there.
Gail is making Sid doubt herself just a tad, but it dawns on Gail. She gets really excited. She's like, "You're not so sure anymore." Sydney walks away, and Gail thinks this is great. She pulls Kenny out, and she's like, "I could save a man's life. Do you know what it'll do for my book sales?"
It's all about them sales, Gail.
All about them sales.
Got to be that breadwinner.
That's right. Got to afford some more brightly colored suits. So we're at high school, and this jackass kid runs through the hall in a Ghostfaced outfit. Even Stu's there. He says, "Oh, it's like Christmas." Everybody was just kind of having fun with it. I love that Tatum, because she's dating Stu. She's like, "Stupidity leak." And Sid, of course, runs into Billy, and it's awkward.
Yeah.
And he's still wrapped up in the strains of their relationship, like they've been married for 30 years.
Oh, high school.
I know. He's just like, "Oh, I want my girlfriend back. You got a call last night." "Oh, well, see, it couldn't have been me. I was in jail, remember?" And he shows her his hand, and he's still got the ink on his fingers from being fingerprinted. So Hembry is in his office with these kids, and he's cutting up their ghost face masks and just expels both of them. He's got this big pair of us scissors that he's cutting them up with. It's like an attack on the younger generation. They're like, "Oh, Principal Hembry, that's not fair." He said, "No, you're right. Fairness would be to rip your insides out and hang you from a tree to expose you for the gutless, desensitized little shits that you are." Just getting really fired up.
Oh man!
So Sid's in the bathroom. She hears some talking. She hides, and there are these girls that are talking about her, and they're saying, "Oh, well, Sid made it all up, and she probably went crazy and killed those people, and she's just a slut like her mother was," and just horrible people. So they leave. Yeah. Someone's like, "Oh, where did you hear that?" And the other says, "Ricky Lake," which was, a talk show back in the 90s. So they leave her. She hears something in one stall. We see these, pair of feet, these boots come down, black boots, black jeans. And this still kind of gives me chills because it's not just the boots and the just seeing the black outfit, but it's when the cloak, the robe is lowered down and you see those fringes. Oh, I don't know. There's just something about that really just doesn't settle with me well.
It's the cloak. It literally, who it is because of the cloak. When you have something that's so iconic like that, and immediately what it is, and you get chills from it.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a great job on their part.
She bursts out of the bathroom unharmed. And I think somewhere in the film they mentioned that this was a cruel prank on her, but I don't know if I like that. I wanted that kind of intimidation, that scare tactic. I want that to be owned by the Ghostface killer.
Right? Right.
That seems very intentional, but also I don't know. It's so good. I don't want it to be just part of a prank.
Right. Well, especially when, during the scene, right before we see those boots, we hear whispers of her name.
Right.
And we're like, who is that? This got to be the Ghostface. And then you see that and you're just like, well, was that really just a prank? So,
Right. I'd like to believe it really was Ghostface, but that's how it was just played off. It must have been a prank. There's no way the killer would have been in the high school hiding in the bathroom, the girls' bathroom. But he would have easily been able to get away because he went to that high school, or they went to that high school. Let's see. So there's a moment before Hembry does get his, where Dewey and Gail meet for the first time, and they're flirting. And she's really flirting with him, and he's kind of playing it cool because she says something about, or he says he's 25, and she said that she thought she tested better with younger people, but even though he watches her show or something like that. And we get this announcement that classes are suspended and that a curfew has been issued. But there's a lot of sparks going on between them. And before he leaves, she says, "Oh, yeah, so you do watch my show. I'm 25 years old. I was 24 for a whole year," or something like that, you know.
Yes.
And
Something cheesy.
Yeah. And she finds it really kind of adorable. Stu says we're going to have a big party at his house. Then we see Hembry. This is a nice little brief moment of its direction where we see Hembry trying on the Ghostface mask. And this is the one from the opening scene, like the similar mask. It's the design is just a little different. But yeah, he's trying it on. He's going, "Oh," in the mirror. And he hears a sound. He pulls it off real quick. He's looking around. And but there's this ominous note that plays when he puts that mask on.
Yes. And that's what makes you like, oh my God, you know?
Yeah. You think for just a moment, that it's him. And then quickly realize, oh, well, of course it can't be him. And so that misdirection, like it completely almost resets your suspicion levels for the characters. He runs into Fred the janitor, played by Wes Craven, in a Freddie Hatton sweater. Hembry opens a closet. Allegedly, his black leather Fonzie jacket from Happy Days is hanging in it.
Fantastic.
Which is a nice little detail. But Ghostface appears behind a door, stabs Hembry. And there's this really great shot. It's an extreme close-up on Hembry's eye, one of his eyes, and we get that reflection of the Ghostface mask in his eye. It's really great.
Cool. Now, like side note here, I do have to admit, like even after buying the Scream costume, when I put on that mask, and this can be for anybody, when you put on that mask, it just feels like you're somebody else. When I put on the mask, I look in the mirror, I feel like I'm something totally different. It's crazy because like when you actually put on the costume with the cloak and you don't see anything but that mask in a dark outfit, I personally just feel like I am literally something, not someone, but just something.
Right.
It's really weird.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from, because I think that's with any kind of not just costume or mask, something that does it makes you feel foreign to yourself. And you read and interpret, this new representation as or you own it in a different way. Like, yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon. Like if you've done theater, if you've done any kind of acting or role playing or anything like that, the clothes or these other things, help to support that other persona or identity that it creates for itself.
Right.
Let's see. So Tatum and Sid, they're hanging out. There's some doubts about Cotton's guilt. There's some mention here about this Richard Gere gerbil story. Have you heard this?
I have not.
I probably need to look it up to be sure, but there was some story. I'll just tell you how I remember it. There was some story. Richard Gere, I think it had gone to the hospital or something because he had 2 gerbils in his ass.
2 gerbils in the ass?
Yeah, 2 gerbils in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how that felt.
So there's thought that the killer might still be out there. Meanwhile, Stu and Billy pay Randy a visit at the video store where he works. Randy says, "Oh, this is standard horror movie stuff." Or he's talking to Stu. We haven't seen Billy yet. And Stu asks him, like, why would, if it's Billy, then why would he want to kill his girlfriend? Scott, there's always some stupid bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend.
Like, oh God.
But Stu says, well, I think it's the dad. What about Sydney's father? He gets enthusiastic about the formula. He's like, if they watched prom night, they'd save time. It's like, it's the millennium. Motives are incidental. He and Stu taunt Randy a little bit before they leave him be. The town of Woodsboro is closing up for a curfew. Some more Red Right Hand in the background. A reference to the town that dreaded sundown. Then Dewey stops by the police station, and Tatum and Sydney are heading to the grocery store, talking about intimacy issues, which is a very mature thing to talk about in high school. But then you notice Ghostface is like lurking about in the supermarket.
Yeah.
That was weird.
What's that about?
That's weird. Nobody noticed that. No security camera. No other elderly person picking up some Alpo for their dog. They didn't notice.
Very much a conspiracy here, Brandon.
I think it is. We get this chat between Dewey and Sheriff Burke. Dewey is eating a strawberry ice cream cone while Sheriff Burke is smoking a cigarette. And every time Burke takes a drag off his cigarette, Dewey has a lick of his ice cream. It's pretty funny. we learn that the phone calls made to the victims were linked to Neil Prescott's phone, and that tomorrow is the anniversary of his wife's death. And so we got to look for Neil. He's prime suspect now. Burke drops his cigarette. We see his black boots, because everybody in this movie wears black boots.
Apparently, it's a fashion trend.
So you can't really tell who the killer might be, because you can't identify them by their shoes. And now we're off to Stu Macher's bitchin' pad. But first, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back after this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
It's time to give some special shout-outs to our patrons: Collin, James, Annette, Test Pattern, a horror movie podcast, Ryan M., Brian S., Jonathan, Mando, Pete, and those lovable souls over at Random Movie Roulette, Lewis, Mike, and Jack. Thank you all so very much for your patronage and support to help us keep this show going.
You are all the bomb.com.
If you're not a patron and would like to learn how you can support the show for some cool perks, go to patreon.com/VericonVideo for more information. $2 a month casual renters get a shout out on the show and a name check in the show notes and on our website. And $4 a month preferred renters get those perks plus a monthly bonus episode not available anywhere else, in addition to other exclusive written and audio content. And now all patrons get their very own Vericon Video membership card. So help us to create better content for you by becoming a patron today. And now, back to the movie. All right, so this next scene at the Macher house, because Stu's parents are gone at this point, has everybody over. This party scene runs 42 minutes. It was shot over the course of 21 days from the time the sun set to the time it rose. And after it wrapped, the crew had T-shirts made that read, "I survived scene 118," which was the name of this scene during shooting. And the cast and crew jokingly called it the longest night in horror history.
That's amazing.
I didn't.
It just trumps the fact that you don't see how much effort went on during a film until you see something like this, because because you just see the movie, you just watch the movie, and then all of a sudden you're like they actually spent that much on it. For the fact that this scene was 42 minutes long, just imagine how much of a rerun they had to do every single time, and little different sequences in that scene. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, 21 days for this one scene is batshit. I mean, I think the first Saw was shot in 18 to 21 days, something like that. And so that's just for the whole movie.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
right.
It's really interesting. I think that I did not remember this scene being this long. I didn't know it was pretty almost half of the movie. This movie runs on an hour and 50 something minutes. So this is long for a horror film.
Right. Well, and I guess if you think about it, how many people are actually killed, then the amount of effort it takes to go through all of those murders, all in with the very specific transitions, because we're going outside, inside, outside, inside.
Right.
It makes sense, I guess, if you think about it.
Yeah, and even though everything takes place in the house or on the property for the next 42 minutes. It doesn't feel very claustrophobic, or it feels like I said, we move around so much that we don't feel entirely locked down. But the house itself kind of becomes the centerpiece of the climax, this really extended climax. So Gail and Kenny, they roll in to do some recon on this party, and Dewey pops up. He said he's going to be keeping an eye on things. Gail wants to tag along, and she discreetly packs a camera, a remote broadcast camera in her purse, and Dewey gladly escorts her. And so in the party, they're watching Halloween. There's a conversation about Jamie Lee Curtis being the Scream Queen. And Stu tells Tatum to go get some more beer. Gail is there with Dewey in the party. It's really awkward. Hey, that's that news woman here and the deputy. What are they doing here? And of course, everybody's drinking underage and stuff. And none of that makes sense. But Dewey's just they're just having a good time. Okay. And so Gail hides this camera beneath the TV in the console there. And did you notice that Clerk's VHS next door?
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I was like, wow. Well, we didn't just talk about this,
right.
But it's fine.
And it's funny too.
Fantastic.
I was thinking when I was making that note that Jay and Silent Bob have a cameo in Scream 3 for some reason.
Yes.
Like
I know. What's that about?
I don't know. They're doing it. I mean, I think they're all part of the Miramax dimension. Like it's all kind of under the same umbrella, I think, because, but I don't know why it needed to happen, because there's a scene at the beginning of, or somewhere in the beginning of Scream 3 where Gail is coming out of Sunrise Studios and there's a studio tour going by, and you see Wes Craven and somebody else, like they're in disguise, they're as tourists. But then you see Jay and Silent Bob, and Jay's like, hey, Silent Bob, it's Connie Chung. Yo, Connie, how's Maury? It's Connie fucking Chung. It's very weird, very weird. Yeah, so Tatum goes to the garage, lets up the garage door, and it's a tidbit nipply out when she opens that door, just a little bit. And we notice there's a dog door cut out in the garage door. Goes to get some beer, and then it's confronted by Ghostface, who's just standing at the door. Of course, she's not afraid. She's can I be your victim? Blah, blah, blah. She actually is the one who christens him Ghostface, or Mr. Ghostface, rather. And then she's not really scared until he reaches over, grabs her arm, and cuts it. Then she starts throwing these bottles at him. She tries to escape through the dog door in the garage door, and it doesn't work out very well for her.
Yeah. Well, okay. First of all, she thinks it's Stu. I think that's what's going on here. She thinks Ghostface is Stu,
and it probably is.
It probably is. Yeah. And my thing is though, like, how can you treat, even if it is, how can you treat your girlfriend like that? I don't know. No, I totally am with you there, because so Stu kills his girlfriend. Billy is trying to actively kill his girlfriend. Yeah, I mean, what's going on?
And so, I don't know where their heads are. I mean, I know that we learn that Billy he's the brains, and Stu is the tag along for peer pressure, far too sensitive, right? And so, and so that whole thing has never really quite lined up for me. But if any of you listeners out there have any theories, any input, please just shoot us an email or DM us on Twitter. So Billy shows up at the party. Sydney is there. So Stu's like, you should both go up to my parents' room and talk or whatever. And Randy makes some comment. It's like, what's Leatherface doing here? Because he's totally convinced that Billy's the killer.
That was fantastic.
And and so they do go up to Stu's parents' room, and Billy wants to apologize for being selfish, and they start kissy.
Mm-hmm.
And
smish, smish.
Meanwhile, everyone's downstairs watching Halloween 78, and Stu's like, we all want to see Jamie Lee's breasts. When do we get to see Jamie Lee's breasts? Which Randy tells us that not until Trading Places in 83.
Big facts.
Big facts. So this is when Randy introduces the rules for surviving a horror movie. So you can't have sex. Big no-no. Big no-no. Never drink or do drugs, and never, ever say that I'll be right back, because you won't be. And of course, Stu's like, hey, I'm going to grab another beer. You want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back. It's really brilliant. But I like that they're setting up, they're making sure the audience is completely on the same page with the movie in terms of the tropes or those rules that we can glean from previous horror films, right. what things have been established, and to set up like how the film is going to subvert that or play into that. And so Stu goes away. We learn that there's a 30-second delay between the camera that Gail put in the house to the news van, which Kenny is monitoring. Dewey asks Gail to accompany him to investigate a car parked just off site. Dewey's behavior here, Williamson really knows how to work the red herrings. There's a moment where Dewey shines a flashlight under his face. He says, "You're not scared, are you?" And so there's a moment where his voice gets a little deeper. I don't know. That moment. It was used in it's used in the trailer, the original trailer. I remember that vividly. But that, she's about to go out there with him in the woods. And so, I mean, as the viewer, we're a little nervous, or we're like, a little worried, like, ooh, could it be Dewey, the sweet
this is
guy?
sketchy.
Yeah, a little prickled. We're a little, on edge there. Meanwhile, Billy and Sid are getting naked, more kissy. And so phone call, Randy picks up, and we don't hear the conversation, but we learn that Hembry has been gutted and strung up from the goalposts on the football field, and everybody's like, oh man, let's go. So everybody leaves to go see the principal who's been gutted, strung up on the football field. This is insane to me. Absolutely insane.
Like, how's this exciting? Like,
right. And that everybody goes to gawk at his corpse, his mutilated corpse.
Right.
Everybody except Dewey, Gail, Kenny, Billy, Stu, Randy, Sid. I think that's everybody that's left.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Because Tatum's already dead. So Gail and Dewey, they almost get hit by these kids as they're going down the road, and they tumble and they land on each other. There's a close moi moment. And and then we see the car. Dewey recognizes it as Neil Prescott's. And so Sid and Billy, they're dressing after their little hanky-panky. And Sid wants to know, this is really curious. So they're getting dressed. They've just had sex. She wants to know who Billy called while he was in jail.
What a question to ask right after sex,
It is. It's not like, if that had been bugging you this whole time, like, why would you wait until after sex?
After sex, like,
ask it before.
Ask it before.
Because it seemed like the answer would dictate whether you're going to have sex or not.
Exactly. Thank you for being reasonable, Brandon. Like, this is what's wrong. This whole relationship in this movie is fucked up. Like,
it really is. I mean, I know it's a way for the movie to move forward to say, okay, well, Sydney is at a disadvantage now because she has lost her virginity, to the killer, one of the killers. But at the same time, like, this whole bit, okay, so to back up, this question is to set up the very next moment, because she's very insistent, but being very kind of playful about it. It's clear that she thinks it could still be him.
Right.
But she just tries to laugh it off. Billy's like, you don't still think it was me, do you? And he has this kind of darkness on his face, and he leans in and says, what do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer? And well, this Ghostface shows up behind him and stabs him. This is the first instance that we see of Ghostface, his trademark wiping away of the blood on the knife after a kill. They later do it in the other movies, but it's a nice little tick or little behavior.
Yes. And I think it was a nice, like, solid proof to the audience that, oh my gosh, well, it can't be Billy now. It can't
be Billy now. And I'm trying really hard to think of a movie before this that featured like a pair of killers, because I think we've been conditioned to expect a single killer, maybe an accomplice, that is involved, but not two people who are sharing the work. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that's why it was unexpected. And that's why when Billy's killed, okay, well, it can't be him. Then, well, who the fuck can it be now? Like, the movie's been shouting at us the whole time for over an hour that it's Billy Loomis, it's Billy Loomis, it's Billy Loomis. And now we don't know. And so all clues now are pointing to Neil Prescott, who has gone missing, and whose car has mysteriously appeared near this property. And so Sid escapes through it's like the garage or an attic space or something.
I'm pretty sure it's the garage.
I think so, because she comes out the window and lands on a boat.
Right. Because and right next to that, she sees Tatum's body, which was a pretty nice scene.
It was a good kill.
The whole,
is it like sparks a little bit? Like, yeah.
Yep.
And Randy, he's drunk. He's just passed out on the couch watching Halloween. He's alone, or so he thinks. Ghostface is closing in and then is distracted. Sydney seeks refuge in Kenny's news van. And then when he remembers that there's a delay and he looks and he sees the front door is open.
That was huge.
I know. And he leaves her. The coward.
Man.
He opens the door to go out and his throat is slit. Dewey, meanwhile, is moving in with his gun. He's like in the house at this point, or he's approaching the front door, I think.
He's approaching the front door. Yep.
He's looking for Mr. Prescott. And we hear the Carpenter's Halloween score in the background. It's a really great moment. And then Gail, she goes to the van and she notices Kenny dead, tries to escape. She crashes the van. Sydney sees Dewey coming out of the house. He looks a little off for some reason. A little wobbly.
Yeah.
And as he turns a little bit, we can see the knife in his back. And so Ghostface chases her into this police jeep. She's trying to find the keys. And of course, he just holds them up outside the window. And then he ducks down. And I guess he's maneuvering under the vehicle or sneaking around, like unlocking the doors and stuff. She's able to get out of this jeep and encounters Randy. He's looking for help. She gets into the house, but she leaves him outside.
Ghostface was trying to stab her from the back seat, and she escapes through the door, and he's just left in the jeep. But when we see the camera roll back as she's looking back towards the jeep, we don't see him anywhere.
Oh, right. Then we see him. He pops out.
Right.
Oh, with Stu, right?
Stu, yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And they're pointing the finger at each other.
Right.
And so she's just like, fuck both of you or something like that, and goes inside and locks the door. And then she hears a noise and she looks up, and of course, Billy is coming. He's tumbling down the stairs. He's all bloody, got his white shirt on. He's bleeding. He's like, oh, let's go. He's like, give me the gun. Give me the gun. It's okay. And now in that moment, when she gives him the gun, that's not, I'm still not convinced that it's him. But as he unlocks the door and just before he opens it, he looks back just a little bit. He just turns his body a little bit and kind of looks back at Sidney. There was just something about that. I was like, oh, that's suspicious. Like
that one look.
Yeah. It's just a smart acting bit on Skeet's part. But yeah, so he opens the door and then Randy bursts in and they close the door. And it's like, oh, Stu, it's Stu. He's gone mad. And when Billy spins around, his face is completely changed. He's composed. There's strength back in his face. And he says, we all go a little mad sometimes, and shoots Randy. Billy is amused. Like he puts his finger in his mouth. He's got that blood. It's got corn syrup. Same thing they use for pig's blood in Carrie. And it's just a nice little detail. It's like, this is a movie. I mean, this is a movie, a horror movie guy to the bone, man.
So many good references.
Yeah. And this is before like internet. Like you can just go on IMDb and say, oh yeah, corn syrup and food coloring was used for pig's blood in Carrie. Like this is stuff that was a little harder to find out back then. This is before really, DVD got going. So you didn't have those bonus features and stuff to educate people.
They knew their stuff.
They knew their stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. So they would have had to have researched this stuff pretty heavily with limited resources. Stu shows up and he's holding the voice changer. He demonstrates. So we hear both his voice and the modulated, Ghostface voice. It's Stu. He's like, we ask you questions, and if you get them wrong, oh, booga, you die.
Booga.
Now Matthew Lillard, oh my gosh, man, like
fantastic.
He's had a great career, and he now he's kind of he's still acting. He's on some show on NBC now, but he owns like a role playing game, like board game company. And
I've heard that too. Yeah.
And he's just, just a really positive guy too. Like this is the movie people talk to him about the most on social media. That and Shaggy, from Scooby-Doo. This performance, like he just, man, I mean, he's fantastic in this. Like we said earlier, he brings so much energy.
Really though.
And contrasts so strongly with Billy's. I mean, he becomes more intense as he gets agitated, but for the most part, in this movie, he's been very subdued. Like we said, just kind of there's something under the surface that's kind of swimming around. But yeah, Stu is just unbridled energy. So he's got the gun that he got from Dewey, and they confessed to framing Cotton Weary. They had killed Sydney's mother, and she wants a motive. And Billy said something about your mother was a slut bag whore who flashed her shit all over town like she was Sharon Stone. And Stu's like, trust me, Sydney, your mother was no Sharon Stone. He does that little thing with his hands. And this is a lot scarier when a killer doesn't have a motive. Did Norman Bates have a motive? Do we ever learn why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people? So he's like, it's scarier when there's no motive. And he said, well, okay, so she really wants some motive. Well, your mother was fucking my father, which made my mother abandon us, which is a weird motive, I think.
It's very weird.
It's very... Later, Sidney calls him a mama's boy, and so that's part of it. So he must have really loved his mother. There's also a Norman Bates connection there. I don't know. There's just something about that. Like, okay, so why date her in the first place?
Right.
I mean, was that just a way to get into her good graces and to get close to her. And so, I don't know. I'm going to stop talking for a second. Yeah, you speak.
Yeah, well, it's. I think you're right, and I think that's how fucked this is that he only went into this relationship to get in her head so that he could find the right means and the right moment in time to kill her because of what her mom did, let alone him killing her mom too. So it's a fucked up way to think about it all. But I really think that between Stu being a very laid back kind of guy that will, okay, well, this guy's motives seem fun, so I'm going to tag along, which is why Stu did in the first place.
Right.
And Billy's the head honcho of it all because of his way of being like, you made my childhood a living hell,
right.
So here you go. I'm going to get back at you,
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, even though Stu is the more, I dare say, lovable of the pair, but his motive or lack of one is a bit more scary because Billy got him involved and he was on board, but just for the sake of doing it.
Just for fun.
For the fun, right. And so to him, there was nothing to gain really,
right.
Besides their way out was to be the survivors of this massacre that they've orchestrated. Right. And so that was going to be like, I guess, I won't say the payoff, but the that's what they were going to get out of this. But meanwhile, Billy is getting that extra bit of doing away with Sidney. But it's weird that, okay, so if the problem was Maureen Prescott, who was having an affair with Billy's father, so they eliminate her. And so, I mean, why Sidney too? Like, who had nothing to do with that?
Nothing to, right.
But then there were so many other innocent victims too. So, I mean, it really is, I think, just, I don't think there is a lot of tightly woven rationale threads throughout this. It's we can't look too deeply into it, I don't think.
They just wanted to stab people.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And all of this was a surprise to Stu. So Stu didn't know anything about that connection. You can see it on his face when Billy is confessing this was because of her mother. But Stu gets excited. He's like, oh, this is the greatest part. I got a surprise for you, Sidney. It's a scream, baby. And he puts the gun down. I'll be right back. So he brings out Neil Prescott, her father, and he's bound. And Stu explains that they cloned his cell phone. Probably a thing back then. Probably not possible now, but I don't know, maybe even more possible now. Anyway, he puts the voice changer and that cell phone in Neil's pocket. But now, okay, so if they cloned his cellular, why would Neil have his cell phone already? Why would they put the cloned cell phone in his pocket? Did they put his own cell phone in his pocket?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was wondering about that too.
And I just said that we can't read too much into this, so damn it.
There's that.
But it's a perfect motive in their eyes. Like, he just went crazy. The anniversary of his wife's murder, which went on a killing spree. Billy and Stu are going to be the only ones to survive. Okay, so the mutual stabbing that comes here. So they have to wound each other to make it look like they were hurt, barely survived. And so they take turns with a knife, Billy and Stu, stabbing each other. And Billy even tells them, don't go too deep, just stay to the side. But they really get into it. Like they kind of not really piss at each other, but they're really reveling in inflicting pain on one another.
Their whole passion for stabbing is really seen here. Like,
and being stabbed. Well, Billy doesn't like being stabbed, but Stu is just like, yeah, I'm ready, baby. Get it up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
And Billy gets him a little too deep. And so that even kind of escalates between them as they're hurting each other more. The intensity of that starts ramping up. It's like, oh, you got me too deep. Okay, well, I'll get you a little deeper kind of thing.
Right.
So Stu, he goes for the gun, and Houston, we got a problem here. It's gone. And then Gail shows up. She's got it. She's like, oh, I stumbled upon you two dipshits and saved the day. Billy approaches her and she tries to shoot him, but the safety is on, which he tells her unconscious body after she is conked out. Another little thing here, like Billy does this little neck crack. It works better without the safety on. I really like that. So Sid's gone. They're both bleeding out. They can't find her. And Sydney calls the house. Billy answers and he's just like, "Oh, bitch, where the fuck are you?" And because she's got the Ghostfaced voice, you know. And then he throws the phone at Stu. That is, "You hit me with a phone, you dick." And so
Stu's like almost gone because of all the blood. You know,
cut me too deep. I think I'm dying here, man. So Sydney's talking to Stu while Billy's looking for her, and he's cutting up the living room. It's like, "Oh, Stu, what's your..." Billy's got a motive. What about you? It's peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive. So yeah, she's told them that she's called the police, and Stu asks if that's true, and he's like, "You bet your sorry ass I did. It's my mommy and daddy who's so mad at me." I mean, I love the humor in this movie. Like it balances it so well with the horror elements. So Billy's just losing it. And then finally Sydney pops out of the closet in her Ghostface getup and stabs him in the chest with an umbrella. I don't know what happened. Oh, I guess Billy had the knife. That's right. Gets the gun. Stu attacks her, and she gets to drop a TV on his head, which is classic death. Yeah.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
That's all I could think about. And another Elm Street connection there. So we learn Randy is still alive. Billy attacks again, and I love this where Sydney, she fingers one of his wounds, like stab wounds or something, and just sticks her finger in there and gets it in there. Gail gets in a shot, and you think that, oh, it's all over. Billy is bloody as hell already. Randy's like, "Oh, just watch out. The killer always comes back for one last scare."
And he does.
He does. Rah. I don't really like that, but
it's a little cheesy.
It's a little cheesy because I mean, I know you want to get that trope in there, but the fact that they're all looking at him, they're all staring down at him, and he just kind of barks at them.
Almost like it was too expected.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, can't we just like be real about all this? And, you know, he's already shot 2 times. You don't need to shoot him again.
Right.
Yeah.
And bam, shot right in the head. Not in my movie, Sydney says. But we do get one last scare. There's Neil Prescott bursts out, scaring everybody. He's still bound, but he's okay. Next month, the sun's starting to come up. It's been a long night. The ambulance is there. The media's there. Dewey's taken away. He's just fine. He's really badly injured, but he's going to make it, folks, for a few more sequels. And Gail she's there ready to go with her exclusive eyewitness account. From there, we crane up on that beautiful house there somewhere out in California. And that's Scream, baby.
Yeah.
Is indeed. And I like the way that this wraps up. Like it's a very efficient ending, I guess. You know, like there's not a lot of epilogue or here's what happened to so and so and so and so. It's just this chapter is over.
It's very straightforward.
Yeah, and it leaves things open for the sequel. So yeah, final thoughts on Scream from 1996.
Hey, like we talked about earlier, you know, this is definitely a Friday night film with the friends or family and sit down with, you know, some popcorn. No cliches there, I promise, but definitely something that you'd feel like is a horror film that everybody can hopefully enjoy. Definitely not some of the horror films that have come out in the past decade, but it's definitely something that everybody can enjoy on a mutual level, because there are some comedy scenes in there. Mixed in with the horror, which makes it very friendly to those that don't even prefer horror films.
Yes.
So I think all in all, with the plot, with the casting, the screenplay is beautifully done. The gory effects, it's an all around very clean horror film.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what else I can add to that. I mean, this one is, I mean, it's the first of its kind, so to speak. I mean, it's not the first slasher, of course, but this is the next iteration of what slasher films and what the horror genre in general would look like for some time. I mean, really, I think personally that the next shift was probably the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003, something like that. Mm-hmm. Because at the time, I think Scream was already falling prey to what it had replaced when it came out. Like, it was just a lot of sequels to existing franchises, and it was starting to kind of lose its momentum. And now, I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre set off a a number of horror remakes, and that kind of has become the new, like for what, 15 years, that's what we've gotten used to, is a lot of retreads and reimaginings and reboots of horror that in some ways are still self-referential, but I think horror in the 90s, I mean, it was defined by Scream, and I think that it's one that it endures. Like it's it has a legacy, and I still enjoy it very much. Of course, I just watched it for the podcast, and it really holds up. Like it's in some ways a time capsule of the 90s, because there's so much of the culture that has changed that this same scenario wouldn't be possible now as it was in the mid 90s. And so I think that this is remarkably executed for the writing, the directing, the acting, like the casting, just the care and the vision that they had for this film and what it might do to defibrillate, a dying genre was really special. And so I think this is a really fantastic film.
I 110% agree with you. Like I was talking to you about that this earlier with The Mask and where it comes from, and it's really cool to see the beginnings of where the director wanted to go with this and how he got the concept of the mask. And I saw this painting. It's the Edward Munch, and it was like a classic painting, like one of the Picasso drawings. Something that's very iconic in terms of a symbolism. And so knowing that that's where this mask concept of Ghostface came from, it brings closure to a lot of what this whole plot is about.
So Joe's shout outs for today. What do you got for us there, Joe?
Yeah. So if any of you viewers love discussing the ways of the Force like I do in a galaxy far, far away, go check out the Star Wars Stuff podcast with David, Joseph, and James. Man, each week they will bring you the latest news as well as their own thoughts on the entire Star Wars franchise and keep you updated on the latest news coming from every corner of the galaxy. Feel free to contact them at starwarsstuffpodcast@gmail.com for more information. That is Star Wars Stuff Podcast, all lowercase, @gmail.com. I just listened to their 79th episode where they talk about all the latest news surrounding the upcoming movie, The Rise of Skywalker. Guys, the trailer is freaking awesome. Like, let's just all be honest right here at the round table and agree with this, because it's just how and how they talk about the episode with the trailer and how the trailer was run and every little behind the scenes of the trailer. It's so nerddeliciousness, and I know all of you guys are going to enjoy it.
Very nice. I don't really have anything to. Well, I'll plug this. So if you're listening to this show, you probably also listen to Test Pattern, a horror movie podcast with Jacob and Tab. Fantastic people. But if you don't listen to it, you should definitely check them out. And I was a guest on their show a few episodes ago, which was super fun. I got to talk about Brain Scan and The Lawnmower Man on a special double feature. It was really great fun. So go give that a listen if you have the chance.
And I actually had the blessing of listening to that episode. And guys, it was off the charts. So please, go check it out.
Thank you.
And now, coming soon to video cassette.
So next time on our main feed, we haven't really decided on anything yet. So I guess we'll announce that on social media once we determine what that's going to be. But Twister,
please stay tuned, guys.
Yeah, please stay tuned. Twister is still coming to Patreon. Sorry for the delay getting that to you in June, but rest assured it will be coming next on our agenda. Stay tuned. Remember to rate and review the show on iTunes, and if you have questions or suggestions or just want to tell us what you think of the show, email us at vericonvideo@gmail.com or call us on the Vericon Video hotline at 312-620-5560. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vericon Video. And we hope you enjoyed our show today, and we will see you again next time to chat about another exciting movie from the rental era. So long, everybody.
Peace out, guys.
Goodbye, Vietnam! That's right. I'm history. I'm out of here. I got the lucky ticket home, baby.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jenny.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle. Bye-bye.
Do take good care of yourself.
What is this, your farewell speech? Going home. Have a good trip.
Hasta la vista, baby. I have to go.
Adieu. Auf Wiedersehen. Gesundheit.
See you later.